I was also really feeling the tension at this point in the game. You know, I've had some blunders here. I'm feeling the heartbeat. Like, it's up in the air for sure. All right, my chess champions, welcome back to the journey. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. I think I'm going to teach a lesson on weak squares and how to exploit them. I just played a blitz game that was just kind of the perfect culmination of everything I've been learning about this topic. And I want to share it with you guys to kind of bring it into the fold a little bit, because I know this concept is, at least for me, it was very hard to understand. And I mean, I'm still getting to grips with it. But yeah, before we jump into the game, well, actually here, I'll show you how the game begins. So this was a blitz game. Opponent's about 1550. We're about 1600. I just played this today. And I went for the normal Sicilian defense, and my opponent replied with c4. And the drawback of this move is that this leaves a permanent weak square on d4. And generally what weak square means, or one aspect of it, is that a pawn can never attack it. So because both of these pawns have both been thrust forward, we forever have this clamp on this square. And this is going to be a long-term asset in our position. So now before we go any further, I'll explain kind of the culminations that led me to this lesson today. So recently I've decided, after my last several games, that my openings have been kind of my weak point so far in the journey. So I started watching a new speedrun that Daniel Naroditsky did, GM Naroditsky. And in that speedrun, he recommends the accelerated dragon, which is just a different variant of the Sicilian defense. So I decided to start implementing that in my games. And also in that video, I'll link to it down below, he had this exact position, and he was able to demonstrate how to exploit this square in his game. And I'm going to demonstrate it in my game too, how it came to play. Additionally, I just started reading Reassess Your Chess by Jeremy Silman. And so far it's been really great. It's a little more advanced. So if you're 1400 or above, I'd say it's amazing. And one of the concepts is weak squares, and how generally you want to, at some point in the game, get a piece on that square. And how often it's very beneficial if this is a knight specifically, because knights are shorter range pieces. They become more powerful as they become more advanced up the board. So getting a knight to d4 at some point in the game could be very powerful. So that's why I want to share with you today. And my understanding of that video that I watched with Daniel Naroditsky, as well as the books I'm reading, I think are what led me to win this game. And I'm going to show you how. So from here, the accelerated dragon, you're going to go knight out, and then you're going to fianchetto the bishop, and then castle. That's the rough plan. And now here, I decided to play d6, because if we go knight out, white can maybe encroach on our position. So let's go d6 first. Now bringing the bishop out to g4. This move is important in this position and was mentioned in Reassess Your Chess, because we're now pinning the knight, which has a control of the d4 square. So we're kind of removing a defender of this square. And later on, we're going to want to jump in, right? So we're further weakening white's control of this square. Now, at this moment, white already has big problems. So why don't you guys pause here and think about what would you play here and why, and what's your plan? So if we go knight d4 right away, the issue is white can trade off our super powerful knight, and then we might have to clog it with our pawn. Or even if the bishop comes out, the king moves, we don't really need the bishop here. We really want a knight on the square. So my plan was, let's remove the knight that's defending the square. This is also what happened in the game with Daniel Naroditsky. So I played bishop takes, And now white should have recaptured here with the bishop. They decided instead to recapture with the rook, which is disastrous. So why don't you guys pause and think about what you want to play here? What's the best move for black? Best combination of moves. It's like 2 moves in a row. So if we go knight d4, what happens then? We're hitting the rook, so the rook probably has to move back or something. And then what happens after that? Where do you want to put this knight now? There's a juicy fork over here, and this is what happened in the game. So knight came in, they moved their rook over. So yeah, my knight came in now with this really nice fork. Queen moves, and we pick up a free rook. So as a result of my chess learnings of late, this enabled us to get a really strong position out of the opening, which was made possible by the d4 square. The fact that this square was vulnerable is what enabled these issues that got us this fork. So that's your little primer on the power of weak squares in the opponent's position. Now we're going to finish out the rest of this game because I actually almost lost. I almost blundered my advantage, squandered my advantage. And white did a really excellent job of not giving up here and putting up a really great fight. So let's take a look. All right, so now let's think from white's position a little bit. So it's white to play here. You're down a rook. So let me ask you guys, what is going to be your general plan in this game? What are you going to try to do on the next few moves, and what's going to be your overarching strategy to try to come back from this position? So I think the first thing you should try to do is try to somehow attack the black king. If at all possible, that's almost always the best way to try to come back from positions, is to try to somehow make their king sketchy and get some sort of opening and mount some sort of attack. So white goes for the move f5 here, which I really like a lot in retrospect. This is opening up the bishop, as well as attempting to soften up this formation around my castled king. So I recaptured, and yeah, the computer's saying knight takes there was best. We'll look at sort of why in a second. Because now the thing is the queen is coming in, and white has this mating threat on my castled king. So now what do you guys play here? So I think the two obvious moves are pawn to h5 or pawn to h6, both of which prevent immediate mate. You could also maybe try to like run out this way. But if you go pawn h5, this is what the computer says is the best move. But after bishop takes, pawn takes, queen takes, I mean, they're still threatening mate here. Only move they're saying in this position is f6. And if they check you, you're going to kind of like run away. And yeah, you survive, but you know, it's not so, you know, safe and easy. So I decided to play h6 in the game, which the computer says is also a playable move. Although actually, yeah, they say f6. Okay, so here's the hierarchy. This was +2 for black. This is +1 for black. And then h6 is a draw, according to the engine. So I played h6, and my plan was if they take, I'm not going to recapture because then we're in huge trouble. And yeah, we're just getting mated here, actually. There's nothing you can do to stop this mate. So you can't recapture. My plan was now to move the knight and then capture the white queen. So that's what I did, but white actually has a brilliant, or it's not a brilliant according to the engine, but brilliant according to me. White actually has a brilliant move here. So see if you can find what's the best move here for white. So the engine found bishop to g5, threatening mate, and blocking my attempted queen trade. So the queen is hanging and mate is hanging, and I mean, it's game over from here basically. So if you go, I guess you can go f6, but queen h7, yeah, you're maybe losing the bishop. takes. This is coming in. I don't know. It's sketchy. Luckily, our opponent did not see that move, so instead they captured, and I went for the queen trade. Don't take the bishop. Now you're getting, maybe not mated. If you go back, you're getting mated. If you come up, let's see, they say, yeah, pawn takes. At some point, this rook might slide over. Your king's very exposed here. It's very dangerous. So after they took, let's trade queens now. Let's get the queens off the board. Let's get a little more king safety, and let's take this bishop. So now I'm up a full rook still. I've gotten the queens off the board. I'm feeling much more confident in this position that, this should be a fairly easy win. But our opponent did a good job in not making it such an easy win. So they take, which makes sense. If I recapture, my king is pretty vulnerable. I decided to bring another piece into the game. And now here, I actually don't really like my move here. So my thought was, okay, let's bring another knight in. Let's get some pressure this way. This looks really good. The problem is I'm neglecting my knight that's on A1. And I think it would have been better to leave, if I leave this knight on C6, this knight has a nice, quick, easy access back to D4. And then at some point, this other knight can go to E5. So then I'd have two central knights again, and my position is reconsolidated and efficient. Whereas now, after I go knight here, this knight's just kind of out of the action for a while. Like, it kind of has to jump all the way around here, and then the square, maybe to here. So it's maybe 4 moves away from re-entering the game. Bit of a problem. So here, the last few moves, I'm just trying to coordinate my pieces, get all the pieces into the game. But white is also kind of, they have some pressure here. At some point, they can maybe do something like this. It's not so easy. And here, I decided to attack white's bishop, but I should have done one more preparatory move first, because I realized actually that I can maybe trap white's bishop if I go rook d8. Yeah, rook d8 was the best, or sorry, rook e1 was the best move here. But after this move, I guess we're not winning the bishop. I guess the bishop can backstep. So, okay, maybe not. The other thing about this move was if we force the bishop to backstep, then at some point we might get a rook in type of move. So, it's looking pretty strong. We can also come over here, attack from this way, things like that. So play continues, back to the game. And I realize I need to somehow get this knight in the game. I could leave it here because it's defended, but we want to get this somehow, back in the action. This was a really strong move by white, and I overlooked the fact that they were double attacking this pawn. So after I blundered this, they're attacking my rook, and if I move the rook somewhere, they get a discovered check. So it is pretty dangerous. I decided to make sure I could move my rook to a square where there is no good discovery. So I went rook all the way back, attacking the bishop. Check. And here I blundered a skewer. So this is how quickly things can turn around. And now all of a sudden, it's am I even still winning? My king's out in the open. Their pieces are super active. I just blundered my rook. So play continues from here. And now black's threatening to infiltrate this way and come after my pawns. So I decided to bring a rook over so that I could block the check. But now they're coming after the d6 pawn. And how do you defend this pawn? I mean, it's kind of tough. If you go king over, then they're going to check you and go after this pawn. And you can't block anymore because the rook's too far away. So, all of a sudden, it's not so easy to win this game. Computer says knight e5 is the best move. So maybe you're getting some counter-attacking ideas or something. And basically just to give up this pawn. They're saying knight g4 check. So something like that. I was also really feeling the tension at this point in the game. You know, I've had some blunders here. I'm feeling the heartbeat. Like, you know, I thought I had this game in the bag, and all of a sudden I'm sort of losing, or not losing, but, you know, it's up in the air for sure. So tensions were high. Play continues. And here there's a really good move for white, a game-winning move. You can see the eval bar. It's saying white is now winning. This is how quickly things can turn. So white missed this move in the game. But the winning move is rook to h7 check, scooping up this knight for free. So even if we block, which I thought, you know, I knew they had some tension here, but I thought I would be fine against this check because I can block. The issue now is they take, and the king is overloaded because now we've had to abandon the defense of our knight, and all of a sudden white is up a pawn. Crazy, man. Crazy. And that's why you should never give up, guys. And white, I really commend white for this game, for how they fought back, and that's why I wanted to show this to you. Not only for the weak square demonstration of getting a positional advantage in the early game, but the fact that white just didn't give up and just kept trying to find a little angle, you know, try to create problems for me. They did a really excellent job, and you should try to do this in all of your games as well. So play continues. Now here I played a crucial move that basically won me the game. So why don't you guys pause and think about, try to find what's the best move here for black. Keep in mind, we're still up 2 pawns, so we really just want to simplify. So what can you do here to simplify? Rook g6. Rook g6 is the move, in part because white was coming after our undefended d6 pawn, but this now forces the rook trade. The rook has nowhere to go. And from here it was just so much easier. I had a sigh of relief, even though I was still super tense. You know, I have 20 seconds left on the clock. But from here, it should be a fairly easy matter of converting the position. So mobilizing my knight, attacking the pawn, coming after one of their pawns over here. Here, I wanted them to push this pawn, because what would you guys play in that position? Let's say, yeah, let's say they push. What do you play? Bink, knight fork. So they didn't play that though. Back to the game. They went for this knight check, but now I'm not worried. There's no forks really. And also in these types of positions, guys, it's important to mind the distance of your king to the knight. So you want to make sure you're not on checkable squares, if at all possible. So for example, if I go a few moves back, in this position, after the knight came in, I moved my king to d8 because of the spacing here. So with this spacing, there are no knight checks, there's nothing. Versus when I'm on e8, at some point, you know, maybe there's some checks that somehow do some damage. So that's why I went king d8. You know, this is a blitz game. Just get rid of the problem. Now there's no checks I have to worry about. So yeah, check, we come after the knight, and basically now we're going to infiltrate and get these pawns. So here, I can't take the pawn, but I came up with a plan to get a knight to attack this pawn. So we go check, king moves, and then now we're going to scoop this up. And here they offered the knight trade, which, you know, the game is already over, but they definitely shouldn't have done this. It makes it too easy. I just take. They have no more pieces, and from here, they just resigned. So that's it for today, guys. So we went over weak squares, and a central theme of the weak squares that I want to underline is to not occupy it right away. So like I could go knight d4 right away, but the problem is then I'm going to lose my really good knight on this square, right? So actually tactically I guess you can't do that right away. But yeah, the idea is this is a long-term weakness, and you want to just bide your time and try to exploit it at the right moment later in the game. And you want to facilitate like further weakening of this square, which is what bishop g4 and then taking this knight ultimately did. And again, I'll link down below to the Daniel Naroditsky game, which was very similar to this. And additionally, on top of the weak squares lesson, I want you guys to really take to heart the spirit of white in this game, to just not give up and just go for the jugular, just come after my king and create all sorts of problems. And they almost won this game. I basically blundered a few spots. They had a chance and they did an excellent job. Luckily, I was able to pull out the win, but it's not always going to work like that. So keep fighting in all of your games. And also, I encourage you guys to take that spirit into your life as well, to never give up and just keep pushing for a better life for yourself. Until next time, I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks a lot.